Welcome back, everybody. Henrik Peak here with the ever delightful Gina Watts.
Hey, everybody.
If you believe schools should be more than just essays and GPAs, if you believe EQs are just as important as IQs, and if you expect amazing things from the next generation, then you're in the right place, because we believe that too. Today's episode, appropriately, is all about humor, joy, and how we can create more of both in our classrooms, because let's be honest, Gina, laughter might be the most underused teaching strategy out there.
Absolutely, Andrew. And we've had our own dose of giggles.
We have.
In here.
You were laughing so hard you were crying.
like full tears.
Like 10 minutes ago.
So it's perfectly fitting that we're doing this episode right now. But before we dive into our content, I've got the question of the day.
Let's do it.
All right. So what's something a teacher did that made you laugh out loud?
Okay, so this came to mind immediately, which is like case in point, because I was in high school a long time ago. At least it feels like a long time ago. But for real, it was like 20 years ago. So, but I had an a high school teacher, but she was freshman year. I think it was like social studies, if I remember correctly. Well, she was talking about history, so who knows. But anyways, so I still remember to this day when she talked about the explorers and she got to Magellan, she had a little rhyme, I guess, about him that came along with the dance. And we all thought it was the dumbest, because, it's high school. We're all trying to be cool. This is the dumbest thing we've ever seen. I still remember.
You're right. Exactly. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah. Do you want me to do it for you?
I do.
I'm going to embarrass myself to all 12 of our listeners. I'm just kidding. I know there's more of you. Okay, here we go. All I remember is that she would do this dance move, and she would go, Magellan, the Jello man, sailed around the world.
He's doing the Cabbage Patch, just so everybody knows what happened.
I don't know why Magellan was the Jello man. He did sail around the world, and I can't get it out of my head.
And you've never forgotten it.
9th grade to now. Can't get it out of my head.
That is so funny. So similarly, I have a story from middle school. So Mr. Landman was my middle school. Well, at that time it was junior high school science teacher. And he said, I'm going to teach you guys something. He's like, you're never going to forget it. And he was like, orange juice. And he just started flapping his arms.
Like the chicken dance.
I have no idea why he told us that to this day, nor do I remember any other context.
You just know orange juice?
I just know orange juice and you flap your arms. And I can see him. I can see the classroom. I can see where I sat. I can tell you everything about that moment. But I remember him doing that. And it's so funny, especially someone who has, I'd learned differently. It's those types of experiences or mnemonic devices help me learn and not feel dumb or other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I feel like we're already getting to the depth of this episode, because you and I are both drawing memories from a time when we probably don't have that many other memories.
Right.
And going, stuck with me. And I think the reason was because I was laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was more than 30 years ago, friend. So I,
not that anybody's counting.
I'm a little older than Andrew.
Well, I'm excited because today we're learning about humor and the power it has, right? Humor really does make things stick. And today's guest is someone who knows how to make joy a part of the classroom experience every single day. Sheila Peterson is a veteran teacher with over 2 decades of experience, and she's from Bismarck, North Dakota, where she teaches physical education and peer-to-peer mentoring. A few years ago, she was also named both Teacher of the Year at her school, and she was named Teacher of the Year for her state, North Dakota. And if you've ever met her, you know why. And if you haven't met her yet, you will very soon. Sheila brings laughter, creativity, and heart into every learning space she enters. So let's jump into the conversation.
Sure. So my name is Sheila Peterson, and I teach in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I am currently in my 24th year of teaching, and I've taught a wide variety of subjects, physical education and peer-to-peer, life skills, English, reading strategies, stars, pretty much whatever they just kind of show up and they're like, can you teach this today? And I'm like, sure, sounds good. So I've kind of had a pretty diverse teaching experience. As far as how I got into this journey, if you've ever read any Ruby Payne work, and Understanding Poverty, I grew up in a environment where I'm breaking the cycle, right? I'm the first female in my family to not have any kids by the time I'm 21. I'm the first person to graduate free and clear. I'm the first person to go to college, and so all those things. Since then, my cousins have all gone to college. My siblings have all gone on to either college or post-technical work. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying it's me, right? But something has to change. We know that. And so for me, the big change was I fell in love with basketball as a fifth grader. My fifth grade teacher was playing with a group of boys after school one day, and I could hear the ball being dribbled from my house. And so I snuck back into school, and that day he let me play. And at that moment, I was a really quiet kid. And I would say my home was a little dysfunctional, and a lot of it had to do with just the financial uncertainties, right? When you have money, life's just way easier, right? And so I would say both my parents loved me, but it was sometimes a very tumultuous place. And so I was a really quiet kid because of it. And I saw him play basketball, and I'm like, oh, my heart just was beating out of my chest. I had to have it. And so Mr. Samsky let me play. And from that moment I touched that basketball, I couldn't live without it. For the next 6 years of my life, that is the only thing I wanted. I remember breaking up with my homecoming date because I was like, basketball is kind of really important right now. And Josh Iltz, wherever you are, I'm sorry, you were a nice guy. But so I knew at a young age I wanted my life to be different than what it was. And so I knew just from my basketball experiences, as I got better, I got on better teams with families that, had two homes and kids that were driving a BMW, and my family had two cars, and most of the time one was broken, So I learned a lot by watching those families and watching how their family interacted and their family struggles versus what things were like at my home. And I just knew I wanted something different. And so I knew that my something different was going to have to be through getting an education. I knew that was it. When I entered the college, and obviously basketball was my vehicle to get there, I was going to be a business administration major. It was not uncommon in my family. My grandparents both worked 3 jobs at a time. My mom worked 3 jobs up till she passed away from cancer as a freshman in college. And so work ethic was always a really important thing in my family. But how do you work really hard and enjoy what you do and have a want to do job versus a have to do job, right? And so I started as a business administration major, and that was not for me. And I went into my college coach and I was like, listen, I am not liking school. This is not fun. And he said, well, of course you're not liking school. And I was like, that's a pretty bold statement to make. And he just told me, well, because you're a teacher, Sheila. And I said, well, yeah, I love being around kids, but my family's going to be really mad at me if I'm a teacher, because my grandparents and everybody held me up to this high expectation of you are going to be the one, you are going to make lots of money, you are going to go do the thing. And so I remember telling my college coach that I was afraid to go home at Christmas to tell my grandfather that I was going to become a teacher because he was going to be so disappointed in me. And so I ended up then at semester time switching my major to education, of course, loving every single thing about it, right? And like basketball, it was the first time that I had something that I had to have. Basketball is that first thing. There was nothing ever going to get in my way. My parents didn't have to worry about me using drugs or drinking or any of that because I was going to be at the gym 6 hours a day, every day I had off school. And so teaching was that next new passion that I found. It was like your new addiction. And why do I do what I do? Even on my worst days. I mean, my gosh, Friday was a horrible day. I had a really bad day. And I was second guessing, how do I be in a podcast about joy when I'm not feeling very joyful myself? But the thing that amazes me most is that every morning you walk back into school and you forgot about the day before. And you might have some lingering remnants, right? But then you remember all these wonderful kids that are happy to see you and that do appreciate things. And so I think the thing that energizes me and inspires me most are my students, and to watch their journeys in life and to see that start to finish. There's no reward bigger than that, to know that you're not, the kids have to do the thing, but you have the strong privilege to have an impact and helping them get to the thing they want to do.
What a story, Andrew. You can just feel Sheila's heart for students in every word.
Yeah, 20 years in, and she still walks into school determined to bring her best. I love how she talked about that recent tough day, not in like a defeated way, but with this grit and grace that says, I'm still here, even though it's hard, because it matters.
Yeah, and she's not just showing up. She's adapting, she's supporting, she's leading. That's the kind of quiet strength educators carry every day.
Absolutely. So we asked her what advice she would give to educators who are trying to hang on, or maybe find again, that spark of joy in their work. Here's what she said.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a storyteller, so you're going to have to give me the wrap it up sign. But when I first met my husband, I was running all the time. And he was like, "Why do you run all the time?" And I'm like, "I need it." He's like, "Why do you need it?" And I'm like, "I have to have a goal because I feel better when I have a goal." And my goal at the time was to finish a marathon. And every time he'd make me feel bad about going for a run, just stay at home with me. And long story short, I finished my marathon. I'm like, okay, I'm going to quit running. I needed to have my knees replaced. I wasn't supposed to be running in the first place, but I'm like, if they're going to be broke, why not wear them all the way out? Right. So, so anyhow, about 2 weeks after I was done with my marathon, my husband said, if you would like to start running again, that'd be okay. And so what he had figured out was that like I needed to do the thing that brought me joy and finding out like the thing that keeps you going. And what I've learned is that challenge is what keeps me going. And so every January to March, I'm fairly certain I have seasonal affective disorder. And I don't say that as a joke. I know that that's a joking thing, but mental health is not a joke. I'm not diagnosed, but I'm fairly certain. I go through the darkest teacher times this time of year. And a lot of it has to do with the sunshine and not being outside. It's cold here. We don't go outside. We eat soup. We watch Netflix. That's what we do. And so he started to suggest to me, like, why don't you, do you want to pursue your PhD? Do you want to pursue, and being really supportive of that. And what I've come to find is that when I am feeling disillusioned, sometimes I need to have a focus, like something that inspires me. If you're good at your job, sometimes we get very comfortable at our job. And then we forget to recognize, I think, when you're getting monotonous, right? Like my kids are happy. My lesson is good. It's going great. But is it intriguing me? Is it challenging me? Is it pushing me? And so I find that I'm most happy when I'm taking on a challenge. Now, I am going to contradict myself in a moment, because I think the other thing that teachers forget is we don't think we're doing a good job unless we're doing all the jobs. And so one of the best things that my principal did for me a few years ago, I bet my blood pressure my ankles were the size of like volleyballs. Okay. So I know it was going on, but I was constantly noticing everything in my building. And I'm a person of like, character is the most important thing to me. And so when I see something that's not good character in kids, I just can't let it go, right? Like it's always an opportunity to continue to build that kid. And so I think she was noticing I was just getting that Cro-Magnon forehead. And so that summer she took away my lunch duty. And when I got the email that she took away my lunch duty, I was a little offended at first. I was like, what? Like, I'm a good teacher. Why does she take my lunch duty away? Am I not doing a good job? What does she think? And that fall, then I didn't have lunch duty. And I noticed that hour that I had to really lock in for my prep and then my lunch was really good for me. And I noticed I was a better teacher in the afternoon because I took a little time to take a break. And so when I had my evaluation last year, I said, "You remember when you took my lunch duty away from me?" She's like, "Yeah." I go, "I was kind of upset about that. I took it kind of personal." And I go, "But I want you to know that I really do appreciate that you were looking out for me." She didn't take it away from me because I was doing a bad job. She took it away from me because she could recognize from the outside. And so when I get the opportunity to talk to administrators, one thing I ask or I just say is, make a roster of all those people in your building, right? Put them down the left side. Put all the things across the top, all the committees, the coaching, the duties, everything. I said, now just go through and put the X's where you see people filling in. Do you have a couple people with all the X's? Or does it look like just a random scatter plot? And hopefully it looks like a scatter plot, right? Because I think that sometimes burnout happens because you're naturally wired as an educator that you're not doing, like I said, you're not doing enough unless you're doing everything. And nobody can do everything plus balance your personal life and all of that. And that's another thing that's really important to me is I had, when I was a young coach, kind of went through something. and got really physically ill just from the stress of it. And it was a really good learning experience to never value my career over my personal life, right? Like, I love these kids, but this part of my life is always going to be the most important. You know, being able to be aware of your priorities and protecting your boundaries when it comes to priorities, I think is really important. Like, if I'm sitting at a meeting and they say we're going to do summer work, I'm very honest. I'm not doing summer work. Like, I work at home, right? Like, but when I can do it on my own pace and at the lake on the hammock, right? But like, I'm not coming into a meeting in a building with people unless I absolutely have to, right? I'm going to protect my summer. I'm going to learn in the summer and develop and work, but at my pace, where I want to work, when I want to work. And I think that we have to be okay with, it's okay to protect your boundaries.
Wow. So Gina, can we just pause for a second and soak that in?
Mm-hmm. Sheila didn't just talk about boundaries, she modeled what it looks like to honor them. And that's no small thing. It takes courage to say, I'm not doing any summer work in a meeting. I'm getting the work done at a pace that works for my summer.
Yeah. Yeah. What struck me most is that she didn't wait for someone to give her permission. She made a change and others followed her example. Like, that's literally the definition of leadership.
Exactly. And she didn't need the position either, right?
Yeah.
She was just her own person among her peers. She's showing us that joy and sustainability go hand in hand. When we protect what matters most, we show up better, lighter, more present, and honestly, more human.
So what does it look like when others notice you defining and maintaining your boundaries? Let's listen in.
I was going to giggle, like, and I don't know if it's because I had the title of Teacher of the Year last year, which whatever, but I had people on my staff lounge being like, hey, I think I'm going to take a personal day next Friday. I want to know what you think. And I'm like, none of my business. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I tell you what, when I want to take my personal day, I'm going to take my personal day. You know, and I just try to, like, people all the time, I think that they feel like they got to have permission for all these things that, like, you deserve. I said, now, if your personal day is going to impact my day at school, meaning you didn't find a sub, you didn't have sub notes, and you're creating stress for the rest of us, that's not being a good team player. Then I got a problem with it. But as far as, like, you don't need to ask people for permission for the thing that you need if you're doing your job.
Okay, how many of us just added take a personal day to our to-do list?
I think we should have. I know I did. In fact, I'm suddenly feeling overdue, Gina, for a hammock, a book, and certainly no more meetings. But I always want no more meetings.
Well, what I love about what Sheila is doing is that she leads by example. She's not shouting boundaries from the mountaintop. She's living them out. And the ripple effect, people around her are starting to do the same.
Yeah. And that kind of influence, it doesn't come from a title. It comes from consistency, clarity, and a little bit of sparkle.
Mhm.
She definitely has.
Well, and speaking of sparkle, what you can't see right now is that Sheila is recording this from a room full of disco balls, fun posters, and joyful chaos. It's not just how she teaches, it's also how she lives.
Yes, it's literally her environment. So up next, she's going to share how she uses humor to build connection, foster community, and make her classroom a place students want to be. Listen closely. She's about to drop some tools you might want to steal.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we get back down to just the neuroscience of all of it, it's dopamine and, epinephrine and all those feel-good hormones that are released. Like, we know hugs and laughter are two of the best ways, right? And while I can't control the walls outside of this school for kids, and they also can't control it for me, we can have a good time when we're here, right? And so to me, humor has probably just been part of, like, my coping mechanism. You talk about trauma responses and things like that. And, like, I have an ACEs score of 6 if you get into that ACEs stuff. And so you learn at an early age, you got to kind of mask some things. Otherwise, people are going to know what's real. And so I suppose the humor probably started out with that. Also, I found that humor is such a beautiful way to disarm other people. When a kid comes into your classroom, like, I teach physical education. I'm either somebody's favorite teacher or I am the most horrible monster in the school, depending on how much a kid likes to move and how their experiences have been. So my biggest goal when kids walk in the door of my gym is they get to come in and they know that this is 45 minutes. They're going to let the weight of the world fall off their shoulders. We're going to laugh. Like, I tell my kids all the time, like, I don't care if you're good at this. Like, your traveling basketball teams and all that are we're going to be really excellent. But when you come in here, we're going to learn about why moving is good for your brain and your body and your mental health. That's what's most important. I think I teach middle school because that is the time of my life I least liked, is middle school. And not because anybody was mean to me, but because I wasn't myself. And my teachers who had me would not know me as the person that my students know me as, if that makes any sense. And because I felt the need to fit in so greatly that I was not comfortable with being myself. So I thought, you know what, when I go to middle school, I'm going to be the biggest weirdo in there. And I'm going to try to get all the weirdos. I'm going to try to get everybody to let that out. So my goal is humor. Number one, get everybody comfortable as fast as possible. Right. And then humor is a great way to connect with children. My competitive kids who love PE, they're going to love PE no matter who teaches this class. Right. Like it's not me that makes them love this class. That's just them by their nature. But my guy who didn't show up on time to school for the first, quarter of school to bypass my class, that one day I played a good playlist and he was over rocking out and then I was rocking out. Okay. Now I got him coming to class every day on time. And then my one guy who was aggressive with the same kid, who was afraid of this kid, all of a sudden they connected one day, a Miley Cyrus party in the USA. And one kid was on one side of the gym and he was doing his thing. And another kid was on the other side of the gym and he was wiggling his shoulders. And the game was going on and these two boys were not playing at all, but they were moving their bodies. Okay. So I'm letting it happen. It's a beautiful thing. And then from across the floor, they locked eyes. Right. And then I'm like, do you guys just want to come in the middle and have a dance party? And they're like, yes. So now these two kids, the kid who got in trouble for being aggressive, the kid who was the receiver, all of a sudden they're just having a good time together. So I live for those moments in my day. And I just think that, we know, when we look at Hattie's work and all that, relationships is one of the highest impact sizes. And I think sometimes we think that content's got to happen first and relationships happen second. But we all know, Rita says it, right? Kids don't learn from people they don't like. So you got to start with that relationship first. If you work really hard on it in the beginning, you can accelerate the learning because everybody trusts each other. They're into it. They're with you. They're locked in. So that's kind of my approach to humor. It's just naturally who I am. I have a sarcastic sense of humor, and I always love those kids who pick up on your sarcasm. You're you're right, kids. Let's just let everybody jump off of the bleachers today to try to dunk. And if somebody breaks their arm, it's probably not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? And then you'll see a kid over there kind of giggling, and the other kid's like, what? And so some of those things happen in your day that they're just funny. But things that I pick up on my day, I don't know, all kinds of weird stuff. I had one kid last year who could balance the badminton racket on his shin. And so then we started timing how long he could balance the badminton racket on his chin. And then they, and so kids they had fun with that. And I was eating grapes. No, not at all. One day I was eating grapes and the kid's can we have a grape? And I'm like, sure. And then I'm like, well, throw one in. Let's see if I can catch it. So the kid's like, all right. And then I got this guy over here, Davis, he's an amazing human. And he's like, oh, Miss Peterson, I'm so good at this. Next thing you know, we're having a grape-catching contest in the middle of class. And did we still get the rest of the lesson done? Yes. Was it planned? Most of the silly things that happen are not planned at all. It just happens in the moment. And in my mind, taking the time to have joy with them is more important than what's happening in my classroom. And I know that sounds terrible with the world of test scores and high stakes measurements, but kids who want to come to school are really important, right? Also, when you go back to teaching burnout, there are times I've told kids hey, I really needed that. Do you know what I mean? They don't realize that sometimes the joy they bring to you, they don't realize how much we needed that from them and what a gift it was. So just silly things like that we do. Some days it's a playlist, and I'll say, okay, what do you guys want to hear today? And while they're playing their game, I'm putting their songs on, and it is raining tacos. And I'm like, this is only going to happen one time all year. And they're like, really? I'm like, you guys, it's going to be raining tacos till midnight tonight in my brain. Okay. And so just some of those things that you can connect with kids by taking the time to listen to them, being vulnerable to be a fool yourself, when you have those pep rally days and that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, they're looking for volunteers to look like an idiot. I take a pie in the face. I get water dumped on me. I don't care. I will be the butt of the joke in the name of fun because it's an addictive feeling, right? You just feel kind of good when everybody's laughing and having a good time. So that's kind of how I approach humor and just a few of the things that I do. I can't tell you that I've got a plan for it because I don't. It just kind of happens in the moment and we see it and I'm like, oh, last week, most amazing thing happened last week. Loved it. This young lady come in and she's like, Miss Peterson, would you like to wear a mustache? And you're like, excuse me? She's like, I've got a mustache. And I'm like, I mean, I guess, right? And then I looked around and this young lady had brought mustaches for like everybody, but it wasn't planned. Like that's middle school, right? Like, Mom, don't let me forget my mustaches tomorrow, And so the cool thing about it was, though, she was just walking around the gym handing out mustaches to everybody. So it wasn't like, well, you're part of our mustache group today and you're not. Like anybody who wanted a mustache could have a mustache. And what she didn't realize in that moment was like that kid who didn't feel like they belonged all of a sudden realized like, oh, people do like me or, oh, I do belong here. And so just stuff like that happens and I don't know how to explain it. It's just a natural thing.
Gina, that whole segment was just one joyful mic drop after another.
It was. I love that Sheila doesn't wait for permission to infuse humor. She just lives it out. And what stood out the most to me is that she's not choosing between content and connection.
Yeah.
I mean, she's saying like, why not both?
Yeah, that. And of course, the way she framed humor as a tool for trust, for inclusion, for healing. Like that's a whole new level. It's a totally different way to think about this tool. These aren't just funny moments. They're comedic moments, but they're also creating connection, right? They're creating depth. They're creating meaning.
That's so true, Andrew. Sheila's not just using laughter to lighten the day. She's using it to invite students into something deeper, relationship, belonging, and joy. I think sometimes we think of humor as like almost disrespectful.
Yeah.
And she's like, there's a place for it. It actually can lighten the mood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're wondering how to bring more of that into your own classroom, keep listening. Sheila's about to share more creative, joy-filled strategies that will work in your real world.
Well, and I think too, like, I don't know if you have children or not, Andrew, but like you think about the times that your kids and kids at school do the same thing. I got a guy who loves to play Magic the Gathering. I am the world's worst and I'm embarrassed. Like those kids have got to think I'm the dumbest human on the face of the earth. That game is for geniuses and I don't fit in the category. But this guy, he loves when I come in and play with them because I was trying to learn because my daughter loves it. And so anyhow, every once in a while he'll catch me because he's coming in as I'm leaving my 8th period. And can you just play with me? And I find myself constantly being like, oh, I've got to be on this meeting, honey. I've got to go do this. And I've really tried to work on this year, just pausing. Now, can I give him the whole afternoon? I can't. But could I give him 20 minutes? And boy, that minute, that those 20 minutes I spend with him are like super valuable. You don't do it for teacher capital, but you pick up some teacher capital in that moment. Does that kid listen to me a little better because I took 20 minutes to show him I cared about what was going on in his life? And with your own children, like my daughter last night, she's 14. And we're rushing around and world's going on. You got church tomorrow night. You got wrestling. You got to get all your life ready. And then she's like, Mom, will you tuck me in? Well, I really should have been reading 2 articles for a principal class I'm taking this afternoon, but I didn't. I chose to like tuck in and hear about her day. And I might not be that good at my class today, but that time with humans, I think we sometimes underestimate how valuable that is. And not just for them, but like for your own well-being, your mental health, your blood pressure, your heart health, all of those things. I think that we sometimes think capital is always a tangible thing, right?
Sheila has such a powerful way of reminding us what really matters. That idea of practicing the pause, first of all,
so good.
Alliteration. But whether it's 20 minutes with a student or a few sacred moments with your own child, it's a beautiful reminder that connection is the real currency of this work.
Yeah, it's so true. Sheila's not chasing applause, right? She's building what she calls teacher capital. And that investment pays off in trust, in attention, and in lasting relationships, all of which, by the way, are things every educator listening to this wants from their students, right? So why not make that investment?
It's really the wisdom we all need, Andrew. And we were so curious how Sheila got here, how this joy-filled, student-centered, humor-infused way of teaching took root in her life.
Yeah, so we asked her how her sense of humor developed over the years and how it has shaped her approach to students. Her answer was heartfelt and hilarious, as you might expect.
Yeah. So when I was in 7th grade, we had this teacher in middle school, Mr. Hanslick, and I never got to be in his class, but we had one of these open air models in our school. So like you had walls, but like the back wall was open. So I'd often be in my class, but I'd be listening to Mr. Hanslick. And I was like, oh, I want to be in that class so bad. And he was the most amazing teacher, so passionate, knew his content, but he was so funny. He was so funny that I was listening to his lesson, and I don't know what happened in communications my whole 7th grade year. So that just kind of always set in. And I was always a person who loved to make people laugh, but I was really quiet. And when I got to college and all of a sudden people were like, wow, you're awesome. I'm like, yes, you're right. I am awesome. I didn't know that about myself. And I don't know if everybody would say I was awesome, but like you're funny and you've got a good vibe and you breathe life into people. And so I started to be comfortable in my skin, a little bit more. And year 5 to year now, my first year kids, I think they would tell you I'm funny. I've been funny this whole time. But I would say the one thing that has probably really changed is mastery of content, right? As you start to master, and like you have a philosophy of education when you come in, right? But then you try things, you meet kids, you have stories and things that change your belief system about how you should teach. And so when you're finally able to settle in like what you believe, like I'm a huge constructivist. So we're always going to learn by doing things, right? And experiences. And so to choose to teach that way, then you have to be comfortable with being vulnerable. You have to be comfortable with failing forward, right? And so I think support from my administrators has been huge because I've never worked in an environment where I was afraid to try things. And I think if I had to work for an administrator where I was afraid, I don't know that I would still be teaching. So I've always been able to try with support, go communicate, hey, here's what I want to try in my classroom. And then they've been supportive of me. And the other thing is I've done, usually every year I hook my kids early, like in the fall, there would be one day I'll play a real banger. So then I get them to wanting to know what's going to happen next, right? Like what's tomorrow? What's the next day? And so once you got them hooked, then I can say to them, okay, kids, we're going to try this new game today. It could be a disaster. So now I've lowered the expectations, right? Like, and then I'm like, but here's what's going to happen. I really want to try it because if it turns out good, I think it's going to be really fun. And then I say, okay, are we going to try it? And they're like, yeah, because they want to know. And so that kind of helps because I don't have fear of like losing control of my class in that moment of trying. The other thing is that I learned to take pauses for their feedback, to adapt the lesson in the middle, not just keep plowing ahead because this is what the activity on the internet said I should do next, So to say to the kids, like, I don't think I like that rule and this isn't working. Why isn't this working? And then the kids will say to me like, well, we were playing a game yesterday, Chook Ball, they'd never played before. And I said, why isn't this working? They're like, oh, well, the catch line's too far. I'm like, okay, well, where do you guys think the catch line should be? They're like, I think if we move it up here, it's going to work. Okay. Is there any other rules you guys are having troubles with? And then they would kind of talk about things and then say, okay, do you want to do it this way or do you want to switch it this way? And so getting their feedback helps them have some ownership in the learning, which then frees me up to be more risky in how it's a pretty open environment. Like people say, can I come in and watch you teach? And I'm like, yeah, come in whenever you want. I don't know what's going to happen when they get there. But we just go and I trust my kids and I think they trust me. And so that's probably how it's evolved, is just having my children and my administrators have given me the safe space to really embrace being myself.
Okay, listeners, I hope you caught what she just said because it's solid gold.
Gold.
She's not only teaching in a safe environment where she can be fully herself, she's doing the same thing for her kids, creating a safe environment where they feel like they can participate.
And that's where humor can thrive. I think that Sheila's demonstrating this for us. It's also where students can thrive because her students feel safe. And when you feel safe, you're free to take risks. You want to ask questions.
Yep.
And yes, maybe even laugh a little bit too.
Yeah.
And Sheila doesn't just invite students to participate. She also invites their feedback on the fly, mid-lesson. She models flexibility and shared ownership. And it's honestly like a lesson in student engagement that I don't know I've encountered from anyone else, maybe done this way or done so well and taught so well.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me as we were interviewing her is she has a natural gifting in this area. She's just naturally funny. She's comedic in her tone and also the stories she tells. But that's not everybody's story, right? Not everybody has that natural gifting. And so what I wanted to ask her is, how do you help others do this too? How do you encourage your colleagues, your fellow educators to lead this way? Especially, how do you help them learn to create joy, receive feedback, and to grow alongside their students? So here's the advice that she gave.
Yeah. So, with the people in my own life, I'm very honest. Like I talked to my principal last Friday. How was your day? I said, this is the worst day I've ever had. And just was really like, this is what I'm feeling today. This is why I'm feeling it. And I always seem to get really nice support just by being honest about where I'm at. And then I think sometimes people appreciate like, you're the teacher of the year and you felt that way. So there's a couple of things when I get the opportunity to go out and speak, which I'm always so grateful because it fills my cup. But when I talk to young teachers and student teachers, I talk about the yucky stuff. And it's a slideshow that looks like viruses are all over it. And I just tell the stories of some of the worst things that I've experienced, some of which were my fault and some of which were somebody else's fault. Like how a parent interaction or a student interaction or an admin interaction and how it impacted me. But I also own up to like, wow, one of the worst things I have ever done as a teacher. And when I tell the story, it makes people, they laugh to tears about it. But like, and I still work with this young man and I got his permission before I told the story and talked to his parents and all that. But like, so I first of all want people to know we're all human and we all make mistakes, right? The second thing that I do is, I don't know if you've dove into like Jonathan Haidt's work with the anxious generation, but I got to hear him speak in one of my very first teacher of the year events that we got to attend. And from the minute I heard him speak, I was locked in. And so I've been spending the year because telling people about his research. I'm like, you have to know this. And so what I try to do is intermesh his statistics along with, Peter Gray's talking about the deprivation of play in social media and like, don't interrupt your kids when they're doing risky things safely, right? And all those things. So I try to intermesh fun activities that you can do within your own classroom. Some of the John Alsheimer stuff, all that. I love his work. And so I just go around and quickly demonstrate how easily you can integrate this right into your own lessons. I know I'm a PE teacher, but like these are things that can happen in your classroom. You can stop in the moment. And then what I try to do while I'm showing these events is to hopefully get them to understand, number one, how you can use fun to create community within your classroom, right? So there's one game that I play and I'm like, okay, listen, it doesn't matter who wins, but one of you has to get to, the 1 minute threshold. And if you get to the 1 minute threshold, the whole class gets a reward. Well, now you might have a kid that's reading at a third grade level in the sixth grade, but he's really good kinesthetically and he gets them to the threshold. Now I've created community. They're celebrating this guy and they're celebrating together collectively that they got some. There's a John Alsheimer thing he's shown with the tower and you take the index cards and you pull the index cards. Well, in a year or in a time when we say that kids are struggling with resilience and academic stamina, right? That's something you hear people saying over and over. We can take those cups and cards out and I can watch those kids fail over and over. I had 160 kids doing it one time right before Christmas and nobody quit. Nobody stormed off and walked away. Nobody said, I'm not getting a turd. They all kept trying. And then I heard like, well, what if we did this? Oh, we can do this. I hear this resilience being built through the game. And so I think that we cannot forget the importance of play in children. And we have to recognize how little play and natural play that kids are getting and how it is impacting their neural development of our children. And even looking at the amygdala versus the prefrontal cortex and all that good stuff. And you're like, whoa, she's giving me the whole presentation right now. But if I was to really, I would ask people, please look into that research. Please, please, please look into that research. It embodies all categories of children. It's a meta-analysis of children around the world, not just our American children. It's a meta-analysis of boys. It's a meta-analysis of girls. It's everything. And I think I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but I've tried to encourage as many people over this year, please, please, please read that book. I think it's a huge game changer for our kids.
You know, Andrew, what I've learned from Sheila is that she doesn't just talk about joy and connection, she builds it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, one activity, one moment of play, one honest conversation at a time.
Yeah. And as a fellow nerd, Gina, it also struck me, this is somebody who knows their stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She's blending research and real life. She's read the data. She knows the neuroscience. She knows how kids learn. But then she's out there building towers, handing out index cards, letting kids try and try again and fail and try again, right? That's all a part of her process because she knows how learning works.
Well, and play isn't just fun. Like, and to be silly.
Yeah.
It actually helps us form resilience. It helps us build community. It's making space for every young person to shine in a new way.
Yeah. And as you just heard, listeners, Sheila mentioned some incredible thought leaders and books. So, of course, we asked her to give us her go-to resources, the ones she shares when she's out speaking or mentoring and developing others.
I hope you guys have your notebooks ready because you're going to want to take some notes. Here's Sheila.
Yeah, I like Peter Gray. I also really enjoyed When the Adults Change. So it talked about like, and I know kids are kids, and I'm not trying to say like let all kids off the hook. I know people are like, we're getting all flowery and we got to be hard on kids or whatever. But like, there are times when things have gone wrong in my classroom, and I did dole out a consequence that when I drove in the car home later that night, realized that we wouldn't have gotten to that stage of the game had I done a few things differently in the design of my classroom, right? So and I'm a big proponent of like, if you were wrong, you got to go tell the kids you're wrong. So I don't have a problem the next day saying, hey, you know, that happened. I'm really sorry that happened, and here's why I reacted that way, right? Like, it's important kids to hear that too. But I think really being aware of when things are happening, understanding that behavior is a form of communication, right? And what are they trying to communicate? And yeah, at the end of the day, it's still their choice and how they choose to do things. But like, was there anything that I could have changed in that environment to make it have gone better? And so that was a big one I loved. And then I think it's called No Drama Discipline. And the biggest thing, and it's such a small thing, and I think it's like in the first chapter and maybe even in the introduction. And you're like, typical, you didn't even read the whole book. No, I promise I did. But they talked about the Greek ethos of discipline was to learn. And I was like, yeah. So if you are having any type of discipline in your classroom, what's the reason? Are you disciplining to punish? Or are you disciplining to learn? And if you're disciplining to punish, number one, this is a child, so that's not good. But number two, what's up with the relationship piece that you're at that point where you want a person to feel something versus make a change in the behavior? And I would love to say like I'm the saint and I run the most perfect classroom, but I'm my amygdala's got to be the size of a softball, I'm pretty sure. You know, and in a gym with middle school kids, it's like lifeguard duty, you know, like, you know, no cannonballs over there and quit dunking Bobby and whatever. But so sometimes you're in a heightened, but so there are times that maybe I react before I've fully used my prefrontal cortex to think. And so I try to read those books sometimes to kind of remind myself and check myself. Kids are kids, they do what they do, but there's a lot of things I could be doing better. And some of it comes from you're so passionate, right? Like you're so passionate in the moment, and we don't always make the best decisions either. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I make lots of wrong ones. And so I have to do some, you know, checking back in and I got to reteach myself sometimes. Yeah. One of my worst things that I've ever done, and I've told the story a million times and we don't have time for it today because it's a long one, but long story short, I had to, you know, my principal called me in and said, well, this dad called and he's like, did you do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. He's like, did you do this? First of all, he goes, I had a dad call. And I said, it's so-and-so's dad. And he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, well, we had a dark moment together earlier yesterday. And so then he's like, well, can I just read what dad said happened? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, did you do this? I'm like, yes, I did. He goes, well, do you want me to call the dad back or do you want to call the dad back? And I'm like, I'll call him. I'll take the heat. This was me. You know, ultimately, well, there's part of the student behavior, right? But like how I reacted to it was way over the top. And so in the moment, the dad was really mad at me. And I said, listen, I would love to explain to you how I got where I got to, but I don't want to make it as an excuse for my behavior. And he's like, well, you should be embarrassed of yourself. And you're like, you're right, I should. I said, I am. This is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me in my career. and I will apologize to you to the day I retire. And I happened to get nominated for the county teacher of the year, like maybe 2 weeks after this thing happened. And so I went and saw that student and I said, hey, I got nominated for this and I just don't feel right about filling this out without your support. And maybe that put him in a tough position. I don't know, but we had a really good conversation. And I called the parents too. And I said, I want you to realize I was nominated for this. I want you to know I still today am truly sorry about, and the dad today, he still won't look me in the eye, which is okay. That was his little treasure. And the young man and I have a good relationship, but the young man was like, no, you have to do this. But it's just that having that vulnerability of knowing you're human and you don't always get things right. And I always feel better when I tell on myself. I don't know why,
Okay, Gina. I just need a minute to absorb all of that. She gave us a full seminar. I feel like I laughed. I choked up a little bit. I definitely took some notes. I think I'm going to buy at least 3 of the books that she mentioned as well.
Only 3?
At least.
No, this has been so good. It's been such a joy, genuinely, to learn and hear from Sheila.
Yeah.
It's no wonder that she was named North Dakota's Teacher of the Year. What an incredible reminder that the best educators aren't perfect, but maybe they're just honest.
Yeah.
They reflect, they take responsibility, and they show up fully human for their students.
Yeah. I feel like Sheila fully, really, totally let us into her classroom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, like she was literally in her classroom doing this, but she also let us into her heart, though.
Yeah.
And I'm walking away thinking about how much power there is in actively choosing joy and showing up with humor and saying the hard thing and then dancing to Party in the USA.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes that's just how you have to do it.
So, hey, I mean, we have dance parties sometimes.
We do.
So
We do.
We definitely can relate. I noted how she said sometimes you have to pause and remind yourself what's most important, whether that's tucking in your child or saying yes to an impromptu board game with students, even when you don't understand the rules. Like just prioritizing the things that are important can make all the difference.
Yeah. Man, This is a packed episode. We had boundaries. We had play, we had feedback, we got relationships, we got being real, and of course, all the wisdom. I hope that our listeners are as inspired as we are.
It was really an energizing conversation, though,
Yeah.
seriously. Like, I know we were laughing and it was silly, but also there was a lot of great meat. And I'm just smiling thinking about Sheila and her classroom and the gift that she is.
Yeah, me too. It's a vision. This is what I'm thinking of. It's a vision of a school and a classroom that can be both rigorous and joyful at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes we separate those two, right?
Yep.
But what would it look like to take education seriously, but also take it with a lightheartedness as well?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better when it's both.
Yeah. And think about all of the young people who become adults who can live in the tension of being resilient and working in rigorous environments, but also being lighthearted and fun-loving and make enjoyable spaces. Like, that's who Sheila is creating.
Massive.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this brings us to our final segment, which is DMI.
It's time for DMI.
DMI, of course, stands for Don't Miss It. It's a space where Andrew and I both will highlight the one thing from today we don't think you should miss. So, Andrew, will you kick us off?
I will. Yeah. Well, she said so many things that made me laugh and think and all of those things. And I joked earlier about Party in the USA, but I actually want to go back to that story that she told with Party in the USA, because if you remember how she told that story, she structured a totally different approach to a really serious situation. She's got 2 kids, both of whom are known to be aggressive, even aggressive towards one another, right? And typically, I think at your average school, that would be a case for the student resource officer or the assistant principal. And instead, Sheila goes, no, I think I'm going to look for an opportunity here. And that's exactly what happened. So Party in the USA comes on. Somebody starts shimmying on one side of the gym.
And Andrew shimmying, just so you know, as he tells the story.
Somebody else on the other side of the gym also shimmying. They lock eyes. Moment is created. And she doesn't go, hey guys, quit being silly. We're trying to play volleyball here or whatever they were doing. No, it's wait a second. There's a moment, a place, a space for me to create connection. And so it is, I think it's a dance battle time, right? And what we might see as, well, she took time out of her classroom and had a dance party instead. What she recognized was happening is I'm taking two kids who don't feel connection and who instead are feeling anger or aggression, whatever, towards one another and their other classmates. And I'm creating an opportunity for connection that's going to make learning easier in the very near future. And the phrase she said is, I'm going to let this happen. It reminded me years ago, I was hanging out with some leaders and they said there's 3 approaches that you can have as a leader and an educator. Approach number 1 is let it happen. This is when you recognize something good is happening here. I need to not get in the way. The second thing you can do is help it happen, right? And this is where things are, you need to do a little push. I actually think she was in this category. Even though she said, I'm going to let it happen, she actually helped it happen.
Right.
She said, come to the center. I'm going to, and the third category is make it happen. And I think a lot of us put our make it happen shirts or hats on all the time. Like it's my job to make everything in the classroom happen. I don't think that's actually true.
Yeah.
I think great leaders do what she did and recognize when a moment is here and say, I'm either going to let it happen or I might help it a little bit. I don't necessarily have to force everything. And so she was flexible. She was open. She was creative. It was just, that story for me checked all the boxes of what I think an educator should be. So
that was very well said, Andrew. And I think even if I think about the make it happen folks, in whether you're an educator or you're a decision maker or you're leading a team, has nothing to do with education and you just happen upon our podcast. Friends, I will tell you that the make it happen that maybe Sheila could own is that she made this space safe.
Yeah.
She made the space safe
about that.
Yeah. So she did the thing that we actually all need, which is somebody to make safe space. The other stuff, she let it happen organically and maybe nurtured it a little bit along the way.
Create the environment and get out of the way.
Yeah. That's so good.
What about you, Gina?
Okay. So you guys know I'm a nerd that loves systems. I just sang that to you. And
I feel like I got dropped into a Disney movie.
You did. And it's about systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's
like Disney's HR video or something.
Yes, completely. 100%. I felt like I was about to sing a song from Pocahontas or something. But okay, anyways, listen. So Sheila talks about when she is coaching or meeting with building leaders or superintendents, right? She asked them to create a chart and outline the roster of the staff and note what activities each person is doing. And it's not to keep tabs on people, but it's to encourage the leader to see it should look like a scatter plot, right? That there should be folks doing stuff all over the place, not just like 2 to 5 people doing everything. Right?
Which is the norm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I love a good visual, and I love a good visual that can inform me about what is so that I can take action to make it what it should be or help point people in a direction of what it should be. That was a very simple thing that maybe some of you were like, wait, I have to go back and listen because I don't even remember her saying that because we were laughing and giggling so much. But the reality is that too often, it's like the good kids get ignored, right? And not that everybody that says yes is a good kid. My point is that sometimes our intentions to do more end up like hurting our whole team because other people either don't step up for a particular reason or they don't step up because they know you're going to step up. And it also helps create an environment of connectivity and collaboration. And so if you as a superintendent or you as a building leader can just map out your team and see who's saying yes to what, and then before you go to somebody and ask for help or before you go to somebody and invite them to do something, you look at that chart and you see who might have some space and time because they're not doing anything right now. So that was a little bit more practical, but that was one of the things that really stood out to me.
I feel like often building leaders go back to the same people because they know they'll get a yes. Rather than doing what you're talking about. Going, hey, how do I increase the percentage of participation in my staff and do, It's almost like a leadership participation audit.
Yeah. I love
You know,
that. Mhm.
Yeah. I once heard a building leader principal say, I feel like 20% of my teachers do 80% of the extra work around here.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. It's
Right.
like, how do we avoid that scenario? So good. So many good things.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got something from this. I just say, if you're going to do anything, at least tell a dad joke or something in your next class period, right? We hope you got a lot of stuff from this episode of the School on a Mission podcast. But before you hit skip onto your next podcast, we've got a little challenge for you. Grab a pen, a notebook, a sticky note, or even the back of your hand if you have to. And we want you to write down one action you're going to take this week. Maybe it's something you're going to do, something you're going to investigate, something you're going to read more about, or perhaps it's a person you want to meet with. Got it? Perfect. Now shoot us a DM with your action step. We cannot wait to see what awesome things you get up to this week. Until next time, folks, stay curious, stay bold, and keep leading your school on a mission. Thanks for listening to this episode of School on a Mission, a podcast for educators by educators, produced by Growing Leaders and powered by the Maxwell Leadership Foundation. To learn more about Growing Leaders, visit growingleaders.com. For more about the School on a Mission podcast, head to schoolonamissionpodcast.com.